Ah, recording. Oh, Dirk is with us. You see, I had to wait for Dirk. Okay, you are recording now. So once again, welcome everybody. I'm sorry for this glitch. Mark is not with us. Apologies sent because he's traveling. I'll try to do my best as soon as I can. Now, I think you are already sharing messages, John, so watch out. You are sharing screen. So we are seeing what you are doing. Okay. And I need my screen. Here we go. So, update from the president, new standard drafting committee. I'm delighted to tell you the drafting committee completed work. There is one contentious area of self-assessment, and we called for another meeting, which will be happening on Monday, 8 o'clock UK time, when the committee members will discuss the self-assessment or third-party assessment issue once again. And I have been asked to do my homework again on the minutes taken during the drafting committee meetings. But as far as committee is concerned, the work went ahead. Committee did the job, and we are now back and forth with Alpha Marine, and it's between Mark, myself, and Alpha Marine. I believe we need a week, maybe 2 weeks, to get the draft to members to spread the word and ask your permission, ask your comments and suggestions. Now, moving on, SMI, which is the Ship Management International Extra Supplement. This is to do with 30 years anniversary and what we have done. And I'm absolutely thrilled that we had such a good response from members, responding with material, but also with support, I mean, sponsorship. So this is going very, very well. We are on time, on target with that, and we should have it very, very shortly. We are actually waiting now for Mark to do the forward, and I think we've got everything, all ducks in a row as it is. Now, maybe you heard, well, we definitely issued a press release, our president calling for one voice. The issue is very, very old. For those of you who have not been with us that long, I'll just remind you that there is an industry round table, and this round table consists of organizations such as BIMCO, ICS, Intertanko, Intercargo. All these organizations are owner organizations. There is no ship management as such involved in those discussions. And Mark pointed out, forced sometimes or reminded by other members, then we do have third-party ship managers, and probably even more importantly nowadays, we've got crew managers, because owners are really shying away from managing crew. Therefore, this is our role, ship managers and crew managers. And we are basically sidelined from the industry discussions. And Mark is voicing this and is trying to get whole industry together, including ship and crew managers. So that's the update as far as Mark is concerned. I'll just check my screen. Any yellow hands? Anybody wants to ask a question or add something to this? No. Okay, moving on. Medical supplies of oxygen for our ships. So this one, obviously you remember that InterManager, following the Anglo-Eastern example, we gave the industry support. As far as we were concerned, ship managers should go ahead and provide more than actually is required by international regulations. And all of this went to IMHA, which is the International Maritime Health Association, and we did receive the full support from them and clarification. We are waiting for the final draft, which I believe might be with us today, tomorrow, and we will be able to pass this on to members, but more importantly, our members will be able to pass it on to owners and show that industry got together, and this is what industry best practice will stand for. Mixing vaccinations, this is ongoing story of all partners, and we are trying to seek clarification. What is allowed, what is not allowed. There is a guideline being prepared now. We are waiting for the final draft to be approved by all stakeholders, so I will be able to pass this on to you, and therefore you, ladies and gentlemen, will be able to be guided. Now, 30th anniversary of InterManager. I am just about to send a message to our executive committee, but maybe I'll use this opportunity to ask you a question and do a little poll here. Idea is to organize it maybe in-face meeting in Cyprus on the 10th of November. Problem is maybe not those who will be flying in, but being a Cypriot or Cyprus based, would you be allowed to actually attend a meeting where others from other countries are attending? Alistair, what do you think? I'm thinking of people, Derek.
As it stands just now, provided that it's socially distanced, open air, you could have a seminar inside, you could have a social event outside. It's possible, Kuba. That's how it stands just now.
Outside it is. Oh, that doesn't look good to us then.
No, you could have the seminar inside and then a social event standing outside. Yep.
Okay, Dirk, when I'm looking at you, do you think we will be able to ask Colombia, for example, to meet this criteria inside and outside?
I think we we will have a slight problem because we still don't accept visitors inside the office. I can gladly make our garden available. We do social gatherings in gardens for our people at the moment. And for the seminar, I could say the Columbia venue could be used. We have used this one as well 2 weeks ago for a seminar, socially distanced. But when I say socially distanced, that doesn't mean we can accommodate large number of people, for example, for the seminar.
Yeah. No, I think we will be looking at the hybrid, people calling in, but I am tempted because there's so many members from Cyprus. So even if we organize for Cypriots and then I'll fly in, for example, plus whoever is available. So we will be probably looking at 30, 40 people and the rest would dial in. I can't imagine Alex flying all the way from US, for example, to attend now. Well, I shouldn't preempt. I should ask Alex. Alex, what do you think? Will you be flying to Cyprus?
I would love to, but I think there's just too much still unease over here. The Delta variant is skyrocketing, especially here in Florida.
Okay. Thank you for being my guinea pig. That's what I needed. I'll be probing our executive committee as well and seeking their guidance. But I think I sense what you are trying to tell me. Okay, that's very good. I'm looking at, and update from me as far as SMI supplement is concerned. I'm delighted to report as well that we had a very good response from our past presidents. They provided testimonials and they provided very interested insight into what was happening at InterManager during their time, which is brilliant because it is 30 years. That's spanning a lot. And I had a very good questions from some people arguing with each other, then they were ahead of each other presidency-wise. And I don't know, because it was 30 years ago, I was still in my nappies, so I don't know. We had to go back to some people actually and find out who was before whom. And I think this is happening as we speak now. We are trying to sort this out, who was second and third. There is a discussion. No fist fights, but close to. Okay, any questions, any comments? Anything from anybody here? No. Okay, John, you are on now then. If you are ready, you can share your screen, please. Oh, but you are muted. John, you have to unmute yourself.
There we go. All right. Well, thank you, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. And I'm assuming everybody can see my screen with this beautiful logo on it, I take it?
That's correct,
Excellent.
sir.
Well, Kuba, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of InterManager, and thank you all for giving IO Currents the opportunity to speak. So essentially what we're doing here, whoops, I am starting at the very end here. So give me 1 second. This might help to start at the beginning as opposed to doing everything else. So essentially what I am going to be discussing here is walking you through the digital journey with impactful outputs that you should be expecting on day one. So as a brief introduction, I'm John Best, Director of Business Development and Partnerships here at IO Currents, based out of the Seattle area. And so one of the things that we have seen across multiple industries, including mining, railway, aviation, is the buzzword for big data over the past 10 to 15 years. And so What you traditionally see is decision makers making decisions based on a thumbnail of information, whether it's experience or very elementary level of data coming in. And then all of a sudden, big data was a thing 10 years ago. And so you take this thumbnail up to copious amounts of information and literally tens of thousands of cells on a spreadsheet. And now the problem is there's too much data. So how do we get from this thumbnail up to these cells down to this thumbnail with hyper accurate data? Well, it takes very expensive teams of data scientists, for example, to sift through the data, give different departments what they need. And so this is where IO Currents comes in. We see that over the past 5-10 years in maritime, for example, we've seen huge leaps forward rather when it comes to data coming off of the vessel. I mean, these vessels are essentially floating data centers. And now with the connectivity catching up to the land-based industries, we can see the use of said data being available. And so traditionally what's been happening and what still happens is the engineering crews are still doing their daily rounds, collecting the data, reading all of these gauges on board the vessel, and not really providing any insight outside of the Noom reports that you guys get on your hand. And so what we see today is we can take that information, put it into our system, transmit it from the ship to the shore with very little bogging down of the network, and provide you with these cells and these massive amount of cells in the spreadsheets. But more importantly, we want to provide you with the answer sets. And so let me start out by getting this out of the way of how are we collecting the data. So what we have is a little IoT device. It's a very simple install. We can install most machinery on board, any specialty sensors such as tanks and vibration or fuel flow meters, and we can collect all of that data into one central location, whether it's a PLC, automation system, or directly to the equipment on board. And what we do is we take that data and we're able to compress it from those gigabytes per week that's coming off of the systems down to about 150 to 200 megabytes per month. And so we aren't going to be bogging down your networks. We aren't going to have an exorbitant cost when it comes to connectivity. And so what we like to provide is complete transparency from you as the manager to the ship owner to the charterer to show exactly what's on board. And so we understand that when it comes to some of these advanced solutions that are out there in the field of, taking your data, and essentially what's been happening is data collection and transmission has become commoditized. And so there are a lot of players out there who are collecting and transmitting the data, most of whom we are actually partnered with. But most of the data providers and data solution providers are providing these very advanced solutions, such as taking your data, telling you how to make these routes across the seas that you guys have literally been sailing for hundreds of years. And the problem with this is these pilots take a very long time, and these proof of concepts require a lot of resources internally for the ship managers and owners without any real immediate output. And so you're investing all these 6-12 month pilots without getting any immediate ROI behind it. And so that's why we believe in being completely transparent, and we give answer sets immediately. And so while some departments in your companies are going to be living and breathing in our platform that I showed you a couple slides ago that was scrolling down, we believe in being more proactive. So what we do is we create a daily system summary, essentially just a screenshot of what was happening on board, as well as providing and tracking the hours per asset, some of the fuel data, the voyage information, and sending this proactively every 12 or 24 hours, just to keep you all in the know to provide that transparency. We also provide OEM prescribed thresholds are baked into our system. So if there are any alarms that are happening on board, we like to be completely transparent and give the maintenance and engineering time to plan exactly what's happening. So if there is any unplanned maintenance, you can plan accordingly, so you can have that part available at the next port of call if it isn't on board. And so some of the power of these remote alarm panels can be something as simple as human error, to where the vessel pulls up at the port wrong, or they leave an engine operating, and so these alert thresholds are being hit even if the captain has decided to put a piece of duct tape over that acknowledge button. What we do is we send out these proactive recommendations to the people who need to be in the know to identify problems that are occurring on board. And so, like I said, we do offer some of those more advanced solutions that I discussed earlier, whether it be voyage optimization using machine learning and artificial intelligence, or our automated anomaly detection, which is using machine learning to identify any failures that might be happening on board. but we want to walk you down this digital journey to show you immediate outputs on day one. And so what we do is we have something called our Insight Hub. It's an automated report system to where we're taking the accurate data, not human input data, and giving you a series of reports that we can do. So we're helping each department, whether it's compliance trying to figure out the MRV report, or if it's maintenance trying to figure out what kind of maintenance needs to be happening, or the executive level reports. We like to make this as easy as we possibly can, easy to read, easy to grasp, and easy to view, as well as having hyper accurate data to save you guys as much time as possible. As we all know, there's only 24 hours in a day, and you need to be able to do more with less with this competing market that we're in. And so we take what used to take dozens of man hours and shrink that down into seconds to automate these reports. And so some of the reports that we offer revolve around fuel and emissions and voyage summaries. And so we've been working with a company here in the US to use these voyage summary reports that we just released. We have every single major port in the world geo-referenced. So once you get into port, we automatically cut that trip and we can identify what that voyage looked like, giving specific KPIs revolving around the time during the voyage, the distance traveled, the fuel burn, and show the day-to-day fuel rates to identify some of the operational slack that might be there. So one of our customers has actually identified a 20% opportunity for fuel and emission savings just based on the operator's behavior on board. And so with the IMO and the EU and the class regulations continually to come down the pipe, we like to stay ahead of the game and automate some of these processes inside. So you can take this live data and we can extrapolate the fuel and emissions data and show you exactly what's happening to avoid some of the overpaying the taxes, for example. And so we're also working with class societies in order to automate some of these processes, such as the MRV and DCAS reports. So we have been working with DNV as well as other class societies to make it from the beginning to the end of exactly what you guys need to do, from the data collection, from the monitoring to reporting, and then sending it over to the verification company. So when we were working with DNV, we said, what's the biggest complaint from the operators and the managers? Well, we have about an 18% rejection rate of these MRV and DCS reports. We had to ask why, of course. The main reason is because the data didn't add up. It wasn't accurate to where the fuel information wasn't add up for the entire year's worth of MRV and DCS data. And so they have to reject it. So the companies are going from square one trying to figure out where the gaps were. It's also sometimes rejected because it's not in the proper format. So we automate this process. We have the cells completely formatted with the live data coming off board the vessel. And so instead of the traditional way of compiling these reports of taking the information from the engineering crew on board, giving it up to the chief engineer, sending it from the chief engineer to the port engineer who's managing several vessels, port engineer to the performance manager up to the compliance department who is submitting to these verification entities, taking dozens of man hours per week to compile this information, we automate it seamlessly from beginning to end with hyper accurate data. And so with the compliance department, we're also working with maintenance and engineering departments to identify and improve maintenance. And so we're sending out these easy to read reports to identify any operational slack. And so, for example, with these different RPM and load bands, we can see the lower the load or RPM, the more maintenance that needs to be taking place. And so one of our customers has identified a way to extend their maintenance cycle in their generators by about 40% just by changing their operation slightly by switching over the generators, for example. So these easy to read reports with hyper accurate data is saving time and really saving costs on the front end. Our customers are also using the reports to identify any chronic problems that are happening on board. So traditionally, a couple of our customers have identified this. When we send out these reports, they can easily look at it, get into the Marine Insight platform, drill down in the portal to identify some chronic problems they've been having troubles with, such as engine pumps or gearboxes, for example, drilling down to that information and seeing what's happening on board. So what traditionally would take a flight to the vessel, identifying what the problem was, diagnosing it, and then fixing the problem, Our customers are now just drilling down, taking a few minutes to maybe an hour to identify the problem, sending an email out to the engineering team and fixing the problems before they become a major issue, saving those 10 to 15 days out of the office where they are really needed. We're also working with executive level to do fleet comparisons. So immediately being able to compare different KPIs across the fleet, whether it be the speed or the voyage, the number of alerts that are happening, the fuel burn, you can identify where the operational slack is. We believe in the philosophy of managing by exception. You can't manage an entire fleet of hundreds of vessels each individually, so why not look at it in a bell curve type scenario to where you can go from bring the subpar performers up to good and the good to great and constantly do iteration based on these. So we're working with a number of departments with our customers and your guys' customers in order to build these analysis to bring very specific KPIs on board to show you exactly where the operational slack could be with these easy to read reports. We also develop very strong relationships with our customers. So if there are any KPIs that we don't currently offer, we'd be happy to come up with custom alerts. We do provide a dedicated client success manager to each one of our customers to where they do have a maritime background. They listen, they understand, and when they walk into the room at IO Currents, we consider them one of your employees. And so we can provide some custom reports. And the best part about it is, once we provide this report, we can share this and kind of peanut butter the costs across the industry to make it safer and better to do with these hyper accurate reports. So again, I'm sure you're curious how it works. What does the data collection look like? So this is our little device right here in this yellow box. It's about 18 by 15 by 5 centimeters. This is one mounted in the wheelhouse of one of our bulk carriers on board. It's a simple 5 plugins. And what we've done over the past 20 months during this pandemic, which we've kind of been forced to do, which is a light at the end of the tunnel, is we've developed a self-install kit to where we configure a custom box per vessel. We send that box to the actual vessel itself, and the crew can install it themselves. We do still offer professional installation services, but someone who just knows how to change an IP address can install this device in a couple of hours with no dry dock time required. And so it's a very non-invasive install. We tie in directly to your SAT or cell, or we can also provide independent cellular and GPS on board the vessel as well. Another question that we're commonly asked is, what do you guys do about security? Cybersecurity is obviously huge. As Alex, you being in Florida, you understand that the pipeline that was hacked and the meat packing here in the US has been hacked. So we take it extraordinarily seriously. Our device is a read-only device, so you cannot backdoor into it and then start operating the vessel. We're extremely encrypted end-to-end, and we take security extremely seriously to where we are staying up to date with all of the security protocols that are out there and constantly doing reiterations. And so in sum, on day one out of the box, you should expect some outputs from your digitalization provider. At IO Currents, we believe in walking you down this digital journey instead of over-promising something that might be real in 6 to 12 months that we hope we can pilot with you. Instead, we can get you there at a very, very low cost to say, here's what digitalization looks like. Here are some of the outputs that have real meaning to every single department in your company. And if you'd like to learn more about our advanced solutions, driven by machine learning to identify failures before they occur, or some of our proactive fuel recommendations, we can get you there along the way. And so what our ultimate goal here is to provide complete transparency, impactful outputs, and reduce the labor burdens that everybody is facing, especially this time, to do more with less and save those valuable minutes instead of compiling this data. So I want to thank you all again for the great opportunity. Please jot down my information if you have any questions, or if you would like to reach out and see a demo or conduct a pilot or a proof of concept just to show you what your data can do for you. So thanks again, everybody. I'm happy to take any questions if we have time, Kuba.
We definitely do, and thank you very much for that. There is one word I learned today. It's hyper accuracy. I was always told that I was hyperactive. Now I'm hyperactively accurate. Well done. Thank you. Alex, you've got a first question, and go ahead, please.
Yes, John, this is really interesting. I just have a quick question, and not dollar figure wise, but what is your business model? Is it a subscription? Is it a license? How is because what I really saw was a service.
Sure. A fantastic question. So our business model is essentially a one-time install fee for our hardware. And then after that install fee, it is a monthly subscription. And we like to walk before we run with our companies. So we have a very light subscription fee for access to the platform. Whatever you'd like to subscribe to, if you see a report that piques your interest or a new report comes out, you can walk your way up in the subscriptions to each report at a very digestible cost.
Great. Thank you.
John, I've got a question for you. Statistically, at the moment, who do you see most interested in your product? Are you seeing more tankers or bulk carriers, or do you see any trends?
So we've seen a trend in bulk carriers recently. We're also working with a number of OSV companies recently in order to reduce those operational costs. Obviously, the cost of oil has been going up very dramatically. So the need for these OSVs to be reliable have been out there. So bulk carriers are big. We are now onboarding into a couple of tankers here recently as we're spreading across the globe. But the big need has been for us has been bulk carriers. But now that we have more sophisticated outputs, we can have more sophisticated inputs with tankers and container ships as well.
Okay, very good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any other hands. Obviously, this has been recorded, so all your details and sorry, Karsten, there is another question. Yes, sorry, Karsten, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Just one question with regard to cybersecurity. I mean, this is going further and further. And we have been dealing with a few companies where there was always a question in how far we have to give access to the network in order to administer the software which is there. I think this is an important question. How does it work with your system?
So the way that we have it set up is we are working through a cloud portal. We do have our database kind of spread throughout the world using AWS. And so we are using the AWS software, or I'm sorry, the AWS Cloud Security Network. So it's extremely secure from end to end. And so the access that we have, you do access the portal through a remote area. But when it comes to getting the data, collecting the data, there's really no information that can be hacked that would bring any value to a third party. Essentially, if you look at the data that we're doing, for example, when it comes to fuel pressure, for example, they're going to see a GPS location and a fuel pressure number of 14 PSI, and then a timestamp. And so there's nothing that really can be manipulated so grossly that it can be changed or manipulated or ransomwared, for example. So the way that we're administering it is using the AWS, using these different security protocols that I listed out before. And so we do have remote access, of course, into our cloud portal, which we have to do, but we do have different security protocols that we go. I hope that answered your question, Karsten.
Partly, because actually I was sure that actually the portal itself is pretty safe. I mean, this is there. I'm rather talking about the asset, the vessel. I mean, installing the box, and I'm going into the systems. I'm possibly connected to the network internally in the ship. This is where my question was pointing at.
Sure, absolutely. That is a great question. So the way that we have the data hub is it is a read-only device, so you cannot penetrate the ship's network. We take in, again, through a central automation system or directly through to the hardware on board. So we have a Linux-based platform, so you can't go through our box to the system itself. It only reads one way with extremely impenetrable hardware or firewalls on board the actual device. So while we are tying into the network and we're tying into the existing SAT network, those are going to be the weak points, but we've definitely hardened them with our proprietary platform.
Okay, thanks a lot. Sorry, I have one more question.
Sure, absolutely.
Collecting data and having pictures. I mean, we see that everywhere. You see NASA actually somewhere where there are beautiful pictures and so on. For me, the biggest problem presently is to find the experts who are able to really work with the data. Because, for example, you were talking about sensors with regard to vibration. if those things are being done, it is very nice that you get it, but the analytics of this one, I don't only need the curve, I need the experts actually who can tell me where something is wrong. How is this being done? Is this the expertise you have internally? I mean, we have all kinds of engines which are there, or how is this gathered?
So we do have a team of maritime engineers on board our team here at IO Currents, and so they bring their expertise to say this is what we have identified to be the problem. So we also have a team of data scientists that look at the data in a very unbiased manner to say, is this going to be a problem? And so if we see, for example, in vibration analysis, essentially what we do with our machine learning that our data scientists are focusing on is identifying problems or trends that are occurring that shouldn't be occurring. So we set up a baseline of information, and if this is the baseline, and like you said, if this curve normally goes like this, we don't think there's an anomaly there. However, if that curve goes like this, that's where our machine learning and artificial intelligence kick in, and we say, this is where an anomaly is. We'll go ahead and point you in the right direction. We aren't going to say that we're going to diagnose the problem, but we can point your teams into the right direction and provide the experts the information that they need to say, okay, this is what the problem is. And so we're happy to team up with any of these vibration sensors such as IFM and a couple other vibration analysis and fuel flows to say, this is where the problem is. What should we be assuming out of this one?
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Jonathan.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karsten.
John, that's great. That's great indeed. Thank you very much. That's all, I believe, as far as
Absolutely.
I can see. And yeah, very good. Okay,
Thank you very
coming
much.
back to summarize our meeting, obviously probably the shortest meeting ever, but we didn't have our president to start with, so I covered very quickly what he was saying. So to close, I would like to look at your faces and see whether we've got any issues for me to take over and take with me for another 2 weeks. Is there anything anybody would like? We all okay? We're probably back from our holidays now, catching up big style, aren't we? So very good. Okay, with all of this then I'll put the guillotine down and see you guys in 2 weeks time. Thank you. All the best. Take care. Cheerio.
Bye bye. Take care.
Bye, Kuba. Thank you.
Thanks.